Live now here on the news feed late night on Newzroom Africa channel 405, and ANC's Secretary-General Ace Magashule has written a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa. It comes after the party suspended him earlier today. To talk more on this, I am joined on the line by ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe. Pule, good evening and thank you for your time. So there is a letter that has been circulating on public platforms purported to be from the SG of the ANC suspending President Cyril Ramaphosa. Please clear us out here on the legitimacy of that letter.
Well, thank you, Thabo, and thank you to your viewers. Of course, indeed, such a letter was sent to the Deputy Secretary-General and the President by the Office of the Secretary-General. The ANC has subsequently responded to that letter, saying that it does note the letter by the Secretary-General, Comrade Ace Magashule, to the President of the ANC, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa. The ANC also emphasized that decisions of the National Executive Committee and National Working Committee stand, and that the NEC will be meeting over the weekend and will accordingly reflect and respond to the letter by the Secretary-General. The NEC has requested that the Secretary-General respect the decisions of the NEC and accordingly subject himself to the discipline of the organization.
Yeah. Is the Secretary-General authorized to write such a letter suspending the President?
Well, you would recall that there are decisions taken by the National Working Committee. Actually, the National Working Committee would have met to reinforce decisions as it has to do with the stepping aside principle, to the extent that there will be a 30-day period where the Secretary-General's office will be seized with the compilation of a list of names of those of our cadres who could have been indicted in a court of law, and accordingly advise them to step aside while they are dealing with their own case. Failure to step aside would then result into the ANC then activating Rule 25.70 of the ANC Constitution, which empowers the National Executive Committee to summarily suspend a member who has been indicted in a court of law and who refuses to step aside. This is in accordance with the resolutions of the 54th National Conference. So the National Working Committee then said that those of our cadres who would not have stepped aside within the 30-day period would then have to be advised of that kind of a decision, and effectively through the effecting of Rule 25.70, which effectively suspend such members from having an active role in the organization. There was a team led by the Treasurer General, which shall have developed terms and conditions under which these cadres would have to conduct themselves at the time when they shall have stepped aside. So communication has begun going out. We did issue a statement today from the National Executive Committee again, confirming that from the ANC, confirming that there has been correspondence going out to those of our cadres who could be impacted upon by that decision of the 26th and the 29th of March. So letters have begun going out. What is expected is that
did the Secretary-General participate in any of those letters?
No, remember, because of him being impacted upon by the decision of the National Executive Committee, what would ordinarily happen in the normal course is that the Deputy Secretary-General would then exercise that. Remember, stepping aside doesn't mean being unelected from a position. It only means being restricted from performing certain responsibilities in the organization while a member is still dealing with a case that could be before a court of law.
So what gives the Deputy Secretary-General authority to write a letter to the Secretary-General to suspend him? Because he seemingly believes that is unconstitutional for that letter to come from the Deputy Secretary-General, as he is an elected member, saying it's in direct conflict with the constitution of the ANC.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, having been part of that National Working Committee, because the decision of the National Working Committee had to do with those of our members who have been indicted in a court of law. And unfortunately, in this instance, our Secretary-General would have fallen into that kind of a category. So what then happens is that when the Secretary-General becomes incapable of performing his responsibilities because of organizational decisions, the second in charge from the SG would then have to perform that kind of a role. But all of this would be reports that will be seized with when we go into a meeting of the National Executive Committee over this coming weekend, where the NEC will then receive what shall have transpired.
I want to just clear something. Resolution 8.2. Does President Cyril Ramaphosa fall within that category that is described in that resolution? In other words, is he facing a disciplinary process currently within the party?
Well, to the best of our knowledge, the decision, or rather the view expressed around those of our cadres who should step aside, it has to do with those of our comrades who are indicted in a court of law. In this instance, the president of the African National Conference is not indicted in a court of law, and there has not been any discussion that is coming to the fore. Of course, one of the things that we were dealing with were reports of the Integrity Commission. And in the reports of the Integrity Commission, the president himself has also appeared before the Integrity Commission, where you would have clarified whatever issues that have been put forward, including many of our other comrades. So this National Executive Committee that will be sitting this coming weekend, part of what it is expected to do is to also finalize those reports of the Integrity Commission. One of the issues we expressed in the statement we issued when we came out of the National Working Committee is that there will also be the establishment of an appeal body, so that when there are those of our comrades who are not satisfied with decisions or undertakings of the Integrity Commission, they could then be able to address or raise their own appeal with that kind of a body. So there will be names put forward to the National Executive Committee as a recommendation from the National Working Committee for final ratification. Once that has been ratified, we'll then be able to come out of the NEC and communicate out to society.
Can we read this as the Secretary-General of the ANC unable to cope with the decision of the NEC, in fact, unwilling to accept the decision of the NEC?
Well, the National Executive Committee has already expressed itself, and it had said that it shall reflect on the letter that the SG had written to the President of the African National Congress in that way. What it did really was to just make an overall appeal that it is important that in how we carry ourselves during this difficult time in our own organization, we all act to uphold the overall discipline of organization, consistent with the oath of membership that we shall have taken, that we will endeavor to make sure that we contribute to the strengthening of organization.
Are you expecting backlash, Pule, from this back and forth? I mean, part of what the Secretary-General's letter says, he's calling on all others who are implicated by this resolution to do the same, literally to challenge it or send an appeal, follow the internal processes of the party. Is that an expectation from your side that this will result in a barrage of appeals of this particular decision? Or are you expecting overall acceptance of this step-aside resolution?
Well, Thabo, I can tell you now, and the viewers of Newzroom Africa, that these are difficult times for the African that the ANC is taking, and these are weighty decisions. It affects some of our comrades who have committed or given the rest of their lives to the African National Congress, who do not know any other life than that of the African National Congress. That's why it is important that we take all of our cadres along and let them understand that whatever the ANC is seeking to do or seeking to achieve here is to merely reinforce what the 54 fourth National Conference of the African National Conference has spoken about as it has to do with the renewal trajectory and path that we must be able to pursue during this term of office. So that's why the intention is not to unelect those cadres. That's why there are conditionalities set out that every month